Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be breaking down B9 and talking about what is extinction, and I'm going to be using examples of what it is and examples of what it is not. So really the best way to kind of phrase this video is 4 common mistakes or misunderstandings about extinction. That's what you're going to be learning about today. So if you're a note taker, go ahead and grab your notes and let's get started. As my resource for today, I am pulling the information out of the Cooper book, the ABA Bible. This is the 3rd edition, and we're coming out of chapter 24, talking about extinction. Help make this understanding of extinction in a very simple way. Think of it like this, right? First, there's A, and every time after A, there is B. Every time there's B, then C happens, right? That is not extinction. That just means the behavior is being reinforced. There's a specific function, there's a specific behavior, and it is constantly reinforced. That's why it keeps happening, right? What extinction plans to do is almost the same first 2 steps. There's A, after A, always happens B, but after B happens, what's going to change is C. Instead of that same C happening, that same thing to reinforce the behavior, C is now not going to reinforce the behavior anymore. It is going to be extinct. It is going to pretty much break itself from the relationship. So think about a relationship. A and B is always together. C is like, you know what? Nah, I don't want to hang out with y'all no more. And so what's going to keep happening is this. Doesn't work, right? And it repeats. They try again. Come on, be back with me. Nope. And as that continues to repeat, that cycle continues to repeat over and over and over again, eventually what will change is this. The behavior will change because the consequence of being reinforced is no longer happening. They're no longer being reinforced. They're no longer motivated to engage in that behavior because they're not getting the same consequence. Hopefully that visual helps. Now let's go into examples and non-examples of extinction. So the first common mistake about extinction is sometimes, let's say there's an intervention in place. Sometimes people say, okay, the behavior is extinguishing, or the behavior has been placed on extinction. That is incorrect. You cannot say that. Here's why. If going back to the example that I showed with C being X'd out over and over again, what's happening to the behavior is now decreasing, right? Let's pretend that's a graph. The behavior is decreasing. What we want to see for actual extinction is that the behavior no longer occurs. But here's what's special about it. The behavior no longer occurs in that same environment, in that same antecedent that it would typically do it. So that means, kind of going back to that first example I showed, A, B equals CX, the behavior, even when A comes about, it's not happening anymore. It's at a 0. So in order for it to be extinction, the behavior has to be at 0 for like a consecutive amount of time. So let's say 0 for 6 months. Even when the same antecedent is presented, the behavior is not occurring. Even though it used to occur, it doesn't occur, and it has to stay at that 0. Because if it doesn't stay at that 0, what does that mean? It's not extinction. It's intermittent reinforcement. That's what it becomes. It goes kind of right back to that first thing. So the correct term If you're doing an extinction procedure, the correct term is to say that the behavior is decreasing. The hypothesis is that the behavior will no longer occur, referencing to extinction in the future. That could just only be your hypothesis. You don't know until it happens, and it continues to happen with repetition and time. So that is the first common error when it comes to extinction. Okay, so let's break it down with an example. So a non-example of extinction for behavior reduction, right? Because we're still kind of talking about that. So let's say that A is Sally sees the light switch. That's the antecedent. Every time Sally sees the light switch, it triggers a behavior. What behavior does it trigger? It triggers Sally to turn it off. Why? Let's say her function is sensory reinforcement. She just likes to see it flicker on and off. That's just what it is, right? And so the consequence is when Sally turns off the light switch, the light turns off. She's accessing that sensory. You can even say access to tangible. It's debatable depending on the function, right? So what that would look like if there's an extinction procedure in place is that Sally once again sees the light switch, same antecedent. Sally then does what? Turns off the light switch, same behavior, same function. She's doing it for that reason. But the consequence, because remember, we're trying to break up the relationship, the consequence is that the light stays on. So she's flickering, but the light is not moving. It's no longer going on, off, it's staying on. Let's say we ask the electrician to do some kind of thing where it stays on despite the movement of the light switch, right? So in order for you to say, or the proper way to use this extinction procedure is that, let's say within the first 2 weeks with the intervention in place, Sally used to turn off the light switch, 15 times. By the end of 2 weeks, she's down to 8. Does that mean the behavior is on extinction? Nope. It just means the frequency of the behavior decrease. Now, let's say it's been 6 months and Sally still comes into the room and still sees the light bulb, and she no longer does the behavior of the light switch because it's no longer reinforcing. The function no longer serves its purpose. So when even though she's in the same environment, she's no longer doing the same behavior. Her behavior has extinguished, even though that's not the proper term. But that's when you can say that behavior is no longer at a frequency of 15, 13. It's been at a frequency of 0 for 6 months. That's when you can say the behavior has shown a reduction to extinction procedure. So that is the best example I could think of when it comes to showing the difference between decreasing versus 0. Okay, so this next one is very tricky as well. So a common mistake is that sometimes people may think that because the behavior is not occurring, that means it has been placed on extinction. But that is not the case. The behavior has to be done in order for us to say that when it's at a rate of 0 for a consecutive X period of time, that behavior is now an extinction. Here's why. So if the behavior does not occur, right, it is kind of just a different behavior. It's just a different function. It's just a different scenario. So let's look at the example. So we're still on Sally. We'll just keep using that same repetition. So Sally sees the light switch. Her behavior is changed because she got called out of class. So maybe someone collecting the data is like, oh, that's a 0. Because she didn't turn off the light switch. No, she didn't get the opportunity to. She was called out of class. And the consequence of that is that Sally gets a lollipop from the principal And that's just kind of a running school joke in many schools I've worked at. The bad kids always get rewarded with a lollipop and the teachers are pissed. But anyways, I digress. So that is not a example of extinction. That's just an example of the behavior didn't get the opportunity to occur. I bet you if she was in the classroom, then she would probably turn off the light switch. But she didn't get that opportunity, right? And another example of that is like someone may forget, like maybe they're distracted. She didn't get to turn off the light switch today because they were doing PE for 6 hours. There was just no opportunity to do it. So the correct procedure of extinction is that it has to occur. It has to be in the setting where the behavior can occur, and that kind of goes back to that first example. Sally sees the light switch, Sally turns off the light switch, but the light switch stays on, providing a different consequence, changing the environment, even though the behavior is going to continue to happen and decrease, hopefully, if it's the correct extinction procedure for that function. Third example of common mistakes made about extinction. Extinction is not response blocking. Response blocking is just a way to kind of stop the behavior from occurring. But what did we just talk about in the last example? The behavior has to occur. So the problem with response blocking is, yes, it does stop the behavior, but that doesn't mean the behavior is decreasing because of an extinction procedure. It's decreasing because of a response procedure. That's the difference. So what does that look like with Sally? Sally sees the light switch. B, Sally's RBT blocks the light switch with their hand. C, the light switch stays on. You would think, aha, that's the match. The light switch is staying on. But this was changed, right? So in order for it to be extinction, the freedom to occur has to happen, but the reinforcement is still withheld consecutively at a rate of 0 for X consecutive months / period of time. So what does that look like again? A, Sally sees the light switch. B, Sally turns off the light switch. The light switch stays on because the reinforcement of the flickering, that's the function, she's trying to flicker it, whether for access to a tangible or sensory, like I said, is debatable, no longer occurs at a rate of 0 for X period of time. I think you're getting it now. Let's go into our last but not least common mistake. Last example. So what extinction is not, it's not doing non-contingent reinforcement, and it's not allowing the person to have an AO or an abolishing operation of no longer being motivated to do that thing. Here's why. Even though non-contingent reinforcement is an excellent thing to do, finding ways to decrease someone's motivation by increasing something else is an excellent thing to do. However, it's just not extinction. It's different things. Those are different strategies, but that is not an extinction procedure. So if we're really talking about extinction and using the procedure accurately, let's break down this example here. So let's say for Sally's non-contingent reinforcement, because let's say her function for this particular example, the reason why she is flickering the light is because it's a sensory thing. It just feels good on her finger, right? Well, before class, Sally gets to play with a fidget. And the fidget also provides that same sensory of the flickering that feels good. So by the time Sally's done playing with that, let's say for 10 minutes, she comes into class, she sees the light switch. Well, instead of going to go flick it off, she goes and sits in her seat. We now have a new behavior. But the new behavior isn't because of extinction, it's because of non-contingent reinforcement. So that's why it's a very beautiful thing to use. However, you just can't call it extinction procedure, right? Despite the consequence staying the same, the behavior changed, which means it's not that. So what makes it extinction is the same exact thing Same antecedent, same behavior, different consequence, changing the dynamic of that ABC relationship, withholding the reinforcement every single time. That's what makes it extinction. So that's everything you need to know about the common mistakes of extinction. While it is a very hard procedure to implement because at any time there's confounding variables that could allow for that behavior to be intermittently reinforced. Extinction, when done right, is very, very powerful. If this video was helpful, please give me a like or leave a comment so that I can get feedback if it was helpful, or maybe I made a mistake or an error, maybe something I need to clarify. Go ahead and leave it in the comments. If there is something else you would like to learn about when it comes to the science of ABA, especially applying it with children in the classroom setting, go ahead and let me know. I'll see if I can work on it. Until next time.